So in the early days, it was buy a house. And, then you go through that change of having kids, and then it goes through, being able to spend time with the kids. So money changed from being that necessity in just doing what we do all day, every day. And then as time went on, money changed. So, that's when money becomes, well, how can I make money from money? And wherever am I going to be able to best use my money? Money became more important because I could see what had happened if I invested $1, I could get 2 or 3 back. So it was always a learning curve of what money meant, how it changed, and how it could benefit you. So now money is, to best use my money is to work out how I can make more money off that money to ultimately not have to be involved in the thing that generates it.
Welcome to Get Invested on the Property Hub podcast channel, the leading weekly show to help you unlock your full self, health and wealth potential. I'm your host, Bushy Martin, and each week I go deep with the best investors, experts, leaders and founders to find out what it takes to break free from the grind, discover freedom and live by design. Subscribe now and join me and get invested in the life you really want. Let's get started. Hi, freedom fighters. What does the concept of access versus ownership mean to you? And what about opportunity cost? And what's any of this got to do with investing? Well, you're going to be surprised. Many of us have been brought up to believe that cash is king, that you should pay cash for everything because you should never, ever owe anybody anything. But does this approach really stand the test of time? For many, this is clearly not the case when it comes to owning your own home. If you waited until you'd saved up enough of your hard-earned cash to buy your home, you'd be dead and buried at worst or old and grey at best. So clearly when it comes to our homes, early access is more important than ownership because until we pay off our home loans, which normally takes anywhere between 25 to 30 odd years, our homes are actually owned by the bank. But by taking out a home loan, we only need to put down anywhere between a 5 to 20% deposit to control the asset. And for this, we get early access to our home as a precursor to deferred ownership at the cost of the interest we pay on the loan. And this leaves us the remainder of our savings and our earning capacity to be invested in other things, like an investment in property, which is where the concept of opportunity cost comes into play. In simple terms, opportunity cost is the value of the next best alternative when you make a decision. It's what you give up when you make one decision over another. So let's apply this to your car. You could use your savings to pay cash for a car, or you could finance it with a small deposit and tax-deductible monthly repayments if you use it for business, and then invest the remainder of your savings funds into wealth-creating growth assets like shares or property. Or you could keep them in a reserve as a rainy day reserve fund. The opportunity cost of paying cash for the car is that you lose the opportunity to invest the rest. And this is where the benefits of access over ownership and opportunity cost actually come together. You have the option to pay less of your hard-earned cash now to get access and control over an asset while your remaining monies are invested elsewhere. By putting on a pair of investment glasses, you can start to make your financial decisions differently by asking yourself, how can I control and enjoy access to this asset now at minimal cost while freeing up my funds to invest in other high growth opportunities? Now, clearly, you have to do a proper cost benefit analysis to look at the true cost comparisons of your options once all costs, including inflation, etc., are all factored in. It's a reason that my partner in all things, Sonia, and I rent-vested for many years when we started in property because we could live where we wanted to at a fraction of the cost of buying a property in the area, while our savings and finance capacity were put to better work by investing in rental properties, where the tenant and the tax office did all of the heavy lifting and carrying the cost of holding the properties. It was about making our money work harder and smarter. Now, I'm not suggesting that you just go out and buy everything you want now and stick it all on bad debt credit, because this is going to restrict your good debt property borrowing capacity, as every dollar you've borrowed via a credit card or a personal loan will reduce how much you can borrow on a property by anywhere between $4 to $7, depending on the lender. And certainly don't take out a big car or equipment loan in the year that you're looking to borrow monies for your next property, as this is likely to really clip your wings. But for assets like work cars, vehicles, and office equipment that can attract tax and cost advantage incentives, financing them cleverly and carefully can free up resources and funds to invest in other business and or wealth building opportunities. And like everything done well, the devil's always in the detail here, which is where today's special guest comes to your rescue. Because when it comes to asset finance, you need an experienced expert specialist, not a generalist. And because generalists do a little bit of everything and end up knowing actually enough to be dangerous, all at your expense. Now, one of the benefits of actively working in the property, finance, and investment arenas for many years is that I get to rub shoulders with some really great quality people. And I can count on an amputated hand the number of asset finance brokers who are not only great at what they do, but share my values and are great people to boot. And today's guest is definitely one of them. Michael Johnston is by far the best asset finance broker I've ever had the pleasure of dealing with. I first met Michael just under 20 years ago, would you believe, which when he actually helped Sonia and I with our work vehicles when we owned our property management business. And we were so impressed with how he looked after us that we've been referring others to him for their finance vehicle needs ever since. Because Michael's not just a one-hit wonder, fly in, fly out, one crack at it, instant success asset finance broker. His genuine care and long-term relationship approach extends to the level that when I bought my last Black Beast Bushmobile in Adelaide a few years ago, he went above and beyond to put me in touch with a car dealer in Melbourne, where I was actually able to buy the car for $10,000 less than I was able to get it in good old South Oz. So in an environment that's getting increasingly more complex and overwhelming, Michael's the director of National Direct Finance, who combine their decades of experience across multiple lenders and loan solutions to help you to source, structure, negotiate, and deliver the best available result to suit your specific needs. So I'm really excited to unpack his personal journey this week before we deep dive into the nitty-gritties of asset finance in next week's episode. So welcome, and let's get invested, Michael.
All right, thank you very much. That's a fantastic intro. I think it's probably better than the intro I got at my wedding. So, thank you very much.
Well, mate, it all comes straight from the heart, mate, and I don't make statements like that easily or otherwise, mate. And so it's all the absolute truth in no certain terms. But mate, I'm really privileged to have you on the show today because you and I have been rubbing shoulders a fair bit over the years, and to actually spread the word of your message to others that have similar needs, very keen to do that. But I guess to kick things off, Michael, in terms of a personal introduction, let's start by getting you to tell us what you do differently, and more importantly, why you do what you do, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Bushy. Thanks for the opportunity as well. It's a pleasure to be able to do this. And as you say, we've worked together for a long time, and I too, like you, I've been in the industry for 20 odd years. I work with a lot of people, but there's only a few that I've actually truly invest time and effort into because of those similar beliefs that we have and the way that we want to look after our customers, our people within our businesses, and have the opportunity to be able to spread what we believe back to our people. So, mate, thank you. So, I guess where my journey is in as far as my business. So, we're a multifaceted asset finance business. So, by that, or finance brokerage. So, by that I mean we look at not just cars and equipment, machinery. Once upon a time, it used to be simply if it had a serial number on it, we could finance it. And I have to point out, we don't do home loans. So it's not in our wheelhouse. It's not what we're good at, and all finance isn't equal. So from that perspective, we stuck to what we know. So my background comes from cars. I left school as a motor mechanic, saw all these guys in suits in dealerships and thought that'd be nicer than wearing my overalls and getting dirty every day. Eventually got into sales through just doing things that I now realise were where my business was heading, what I wanted a future business to look like. So I did things like car shows from the workshop. I'd be in the workshop in the morning, go to the Melbourne Car Show, for instance, was on for for a week in the city, and we'd spend that time hassling the sales manager to try and get a chance to have a go and talk to people, and from there it just came about relationships and experience, and I really got value out of people engaging and accepting the information that I was giving them. So went through a career, and don't hold it against me, but I went through a career in car sales. And then into running dealerships, and then eventually into my first experience into an online finance brokerage. And having had some experience through financing the dealerships, this was kind of a new thing. It actually opened up my eyes to the fact that I didn't have one product to sell anymore. So people walk into a dealership, their intent is, the dealership's intent is to sell you the product that they have on the floor and not let you leave until you do. So for all intents and purposes, their product is the best product, and no one else out there matters. So they'll tell you why you should buy their car, why theirs is so much better than theirs, better than the others. And then if you're successful in buying that car, then they'll try and sell you aftermarket. They'll sell you finance. And it's all about selling a car, their car that they have in stock. So getting into a brokerage after that really opened my eyes to the fact that, hey, I can actually talk to people about a lot of things. And it wasn't one lender, one bank, one product. It meant I had opportunity to actually help people. So whilst, yes, my role is to sell a product, and I don't make money unless I sell the product, it was at that point where I had the ability to choose the products and choose for the benefit of the client. And probably in the early days, it was a case of, well, we're learning, these are the products we've got through the lenders, and so we would sell. And then as time went on and I was more experienced, got to really understand what a broker's role was. And as a broker, our job is to broker. We're not there to sell a product. We're there to find the best product that suits the client's needs, get the best result for the client. And that may not actually mean it's the best result for me. So by that, I mean, it might not be the lender that gives me the most commissions. It might not be the lender that gives me the best kickback somewhere down the track, but more about making sure that client got what they were expecting to get before they came to us. And sometimes it's not a case that the customers know exactly what they're after either. So as an education piece, we need to take on that knowledge and confidence for the client to make sure that we understand what they're looking for and give them the confidence that we're helping them make that decision. So what they came in for might have actually been not quite the right product.
That's a real skill, is because people, when it comes to anything like this, as I said in the intro, often know enough to be dangerous. And they think they know what they need, but once you open their eyes to the options and the pros and cons of what's on offer, then suddenly there's a bit of a penny drop moment there that they go, okay, well, now I really understand what I need. So that's a really important part of it. What I'd like to do briefly, Michael, is circle back to, when you made the change from selling cars to moving into the finance area. What attracted you to do that? What was the thing that sort of got you to think, oh, gee, I think I'd have more fun and more satisfaction out of doing that? Can you remember?
Yeah, look, I sort of agree. I touched on finance in the dealership, and I found that was the part of the process. We actually got to know the client better, not so much that they were there to buy finance. They were there to buy a car. Yeah. Finance was a separate thing, and we got to get closer to the clients in the finance department more so than the sales department. So it kind of taught me a different level of relationship. And really trying to identify what people's needs were, because we all know when someone comes into a dealership, they need a car, and you've got that ability to sell what's there in front of you, and 9 times out of 10, people are coming in there because they've already seen it and liked it, done their research. Yeah. So from a finance perspective, again, they didn't really know what they needed. We were an add-on to the sale, and to a smaller degree, we had to fight for that opportunity. Because they might have had relationships elsewhere. But as I say, the dealership side of things was, again, just sell the products that you've got. You're rewarded on what you sell. There's certain KPIs between all the departments. And so I guess once I left that environment, and I didn't really know when I got into the finance brokerage world that that's where I was going to stay. And ultimately, when I left, I went to a brokerage owned by a gentleman that I'd worked for before, or worked with before in a previous dealership. And he said, just come and sit in here while you're looking for something to do, and just take your time, and if we can help you find what you're looking for, fantastic. But come in here and do this. And that's what I say, that was the eye-opener, because all of a sudden I had products. I had the ability to be more open and honest with clients, because it wasn't just, hey, my product's the best product. Here's a bunch of lenders, here's a bunch of options, and here are the differences between those. And it might not just be rate, it might not be, the name of the brand of the product. Once you drill in and talk to the customer and understand what they wanted, how they were going to use the product, what their long-term goals were going to be, you might have been able to then suggest products that best suited that scenario. So you went away from being transactional to actually understanding it and have a more holistic idea of what you might be able to do with the client. And I guess the way I'm built is that I'm looking for a long-term relationship. So it wasn't about, hey, I can just sell this product now and never see the client again. It was, okay, if I can sell this product now and I do a good job, the customer appreciates it, and we achieve what they were hoping to achieve, I might get that opportunity again. Or I might get a referral, or family, or it's more of a holistic idea, and that's something I really appreciated. And so at that point, that's when I thought, okay, finance brokerage is where I want to end up.
Yeah, I know you've had a few ducks and weaves, sort of taste testing other exercises, and ended up back in the broking space. So take us on that journey, mate. Tell us about why you decided to do something else for a period, and then what's brought you back into the space that you're so good at.
Yeah, look, I guess it's like most people. You do something for so long and you become bored by it. You think you've reached as far as you want to go, or you just burn out. You've just gotten to the point where you think, where is my future in this? There's less opportunities coming about, less opportunity to earn an income or a better income. So then you have to start looking either sideways or staying within the industry and doing the same thing, but somewhere else, and then hopefully at a different level to give you more opportunity again in the future. So I kind of did that. GFC hit. Things were pretty tough in all sectors. I had some friends that were in franchising, and we sort of talked a lot, looked at what they were doing, how their businesses were affected by GFC, what they did in their businesses, and a lot of it was around relationships. So building relationships with franchisors, building relationships with franchisees, teaching their people how to have relationships with their customers, and it sounded really more down my pathway. As I say, I was getting a bit tired of where I was and not doing what I wanted to do. So I got into I always say to people, I got into franchising, and so people are engaged and think, oh, that's great. I've worn a suit all my life up until I was about 30, 32, suit and tie, shiny shoes, cufflinks. And then I said to people, I bought a dog wash franchise. So everyone looked at me madly and a bit puzzled and couldn't quite work out what I was doing. And then we explained. We actually purchased the Australian New Zealand rights to this franchise model, and our role was to basically bring franchisees in and build a brand, which was already a well-known, strong brand in the country.
Yep.
But it was a division of that brand that needed some growth. So from that perspective, it was a bit of a challenge. With two partners, 3 of us in total, we thought the 3 of us could run that business while each ran their own other franchise business, and I stayed in finance. But we found that it was probably out of our comfort zone. It wasn't, whilst the franchise model was the same, that these two guys had had grown up in, and in fact had developed themselves to a large degree. The product itself was somewhat different. So different people, different style of selling, and probably more emotive than what these other businesses that they owned were. So it took us a while. It probably took us 6 months to get our heads around how that had to work, which meant one of us had to leave the jobs that we were doing. And then given that the other two partners owned their own businesses, it wasn't going to be them. And so this was my first full foray into running my own business.
Yeah.
And we did that, or I did that for the fact that I just wanted to, again, just take that next step. Yeah. Wanted to apply all those things that I'd learned through corporate world and try and make that, make something of it, with putting my own stamp on it. Yeah. So got into that world and loved it. So it took me a long time. It took me a long time to understand the industry and the emotions within that industry. But ultimately what it came back to was our style of selling, my style of selling was the same no matter what I did. Yeah. And also the way I treated people and be staff or franchisees or other franchisors, the philosophy around how I sold didn't change. Yeah. So I had to learn the product and understand the product a lot more, but I didn't really have to change what I already knew. And that was the exciting part. Was once that penny dropped, we were able to teach dog groomers how to run their own business and how to be profitable. And probably the only other thing that came out about that was people's expectations. What was success? If someone was investing their time and money into their business, what I thought was successful didn't necessarily mean what wasn't their same vision of success. Yeah. So I had to learn how to change with that. So we'd have some people that could earn $50,000 or $60,000 a year and think that was fine. In my mind, we had models that would allow them to double that income. And I couldn't understand why I was getting resistance when I was asking them to try different things to be able to earn more money. But once we understood where they wanted to be in life and what was success to them, then we had better relationships and more successful people out there.
Yeah, makes sense. So, what circled you back then into the asset finance arena?
Yeah, so with the franchise, we actually sold it probably 5 years sooner than we wanted to. I bought one of my partners out. We were looking at expanding the business, looking for either investors or other opportunities to cross-network the business. We looked at some of the big pet suppliers in the country and started having a conversation with them. But because it was a franchise, that limited their ability to grow the business in the directions they wanted. Yeah. So one day we spoke to the owner of the franchise brand, and he made us an offer to sell the business back to him, which meant we were selling 5 years earlier. The business wasn't in a position where where we thought we would have it at a sale, but we were offered an offer that was good enough to convince us to sell it. And unlike any other sale of a business, it was done within 3 or 4 days. So from the day of offer to the day we had the check was very, very quick. Wow. So that prompted that side of it, and it was just a timing thing. It was either invest more money into it and stick around for a while, or take this opportunity now and then go and look at other areas. And I guess what brought me back into the finance was I never quite left it. So whilst we were talking to franchisees and we were looking for funding to get them into their business, my background sort of kept me involved in that side. Yeah. And there were still customers that I'd always dealt with that wanted support, so they would come to me before going anywhere else. So I would still broker the odd business here and there. Yeah. And then I got involved with somebody who I'd worked with in the finance brokerage prior. That had gone out on his own and had a business that was going okay, but needed some help. And whilst I was doing my finance, I was referring business back to them. And then the opportunity came up to help them grow their business. And again, that was a short-term idea. And then eventually, having got involved, having rebranded, having just changed that business, the way it ran, I thought I've invested all this time and effort and money now. I might as well go and do this. So I actually started or joined National Direct Finance, and we set up a division in Melbourne. They were Queensland based, and then our role was to help develop brokers, young brokers coming into the industry to run their own brokerage, which again supported my passion in helping people grow their businesses. But it did it now in a finance environment, and gave me the ability to put the two together.
Yeah, brilliant. I want to circle back now, Michael, if we can. Now, if you can still hear me there, Michael.
Sorry, go again, mate. Sorry, yeah.
I just want to circle back to your childhood, if I can, because often our families have a big impact on how we think, look, and act in the world. So how has your upbringing affected who you've become, do you think?
Yeah, I think I was lucky, different, and it affects different people in different ways as well. So I won't suggest that my brother had the same experience doing what we did, but it somehow suited me. But my father was in the services. And we travelled a lot, and we would find ourselves spending some time in Australia and then Southeast Asia, getting to travel a lot out of Southeast Asia, coming back to live in Australia, and Dad really enjoyed Hong Kong, Southeast Asia area, and had done some work in Singapore and Butterworth for a fair bit of time in Hong Kong, and so he would circle back to that. And I would probably, you can see now I'm an introvert. I find it hard to talk to people. I found that I could actually reinvent myself as I went. So I was an introvert. I was a shy kid. I didn't have trouble making friends, but I didn't. Once I was in a bubble, I would stay there. So each time we changed, it gave me that opportunity to reinvent. And again, if I look back at it now, it was teaching me selling the whole time. So it was teaching me a relationship. So I don't always call selling. It's relationship is selling. In my book, we've all done it. We've all probably had girlfriends, got engaged, got married. That's selling, because in one way or another we've had to sell. So I think it gave me that confidence that okay, that didn't work. So now what do I have to do to be who I want to be? And so there's a lot of, like when we're all young, we're always looking to try and work out who we are in life. And I think that just accelerated things, because it just gave that opportunity to do it. And it just taught you some resilience. It taught you that, hey, not everyone's going to like you. Not everyone's going to want to be a part of what you do. And we had 2 years to deal with it most of the time. So it was, you had a posting for 2 years and then you were gone. And this was before Facebook and Instagram and all these things. And I wasn't much of a writer. So once we left a place, the pen pal thing might have worked for a year or a month or two. But outside of that, you dropped off pretty quickly.
Yeah, mate, I'm right there with you. Very similar. And I think the adaptability that comes out of constantly moving to new locations and travel and having to establish new relationships, everything you're talking about, it resonates with me personally.
Yeah.
I'm very, very similar in that regard. But if we look back on that time, Michael, what are the sort of core values and beliefs that emerged from that, and how have they influenced your life ongoing?
Yeah, look, I think there's three, and they're probably fairly standard things, but it's how you use them, I think, is the important thing. So honesty, integrity are probably the two key ones that I tend to think are the most important. In fact, if I pull it back to those two, I think that's your foundation.
Yeah.
And outside of that, sure, we were in a place for a short period of time, and I guess you treat it a bit like Facebook of today. You can get up and you can slam anything out there that makes people think you are what you are, when clearly you're not. And to a degree, when you travelled a lot, you had that same ability, but you were grounded in that same place. So you got found out pretty quickly. Yeah. So they're probably the couple of things that I hold as a high value. And they're non-negotiables. It's there's honesty in you as a human. There's honesty in how you operate your business. There's honesty in the way that you treat your family, and within honesty comes integrity. So you have to believe in yourself and in what you do, and I think if that's your core and you stick to it and you believe it, then it's not something you work towards. It's just there, and to me, it's that foundation.
100%. And honesty and integrity are terms that are thrown around very loosely, sadly.
It's easy to do, yeah.
Yeah, but the reality of that and living that, and being happy to have hard conversations and say no and be brutally honest in times when it's important. And but we talk about our business. We have a brutal honest policy. So
yep.
We have a regular keep, stop, start session with our team where we say, I want you to keep doing this, I want you to stop doing that, and I want you to start doing this. And we often say that if you find yourself at home talking to your partner about something or someone at work and you haven't had that conversation, then there's an issue. So you're creating an environment where that form of direct honesty is both respected and appreciated is really a foundation stone in our self-belief, because if we believe in that ourselves, then that tends to emanate in every interaction we have with everyone else. So I love you sharing that, mate. While we're talking about the family, what's a funny story that your family tells about you that you'd love to share with us, mate?
They pick on me a lot, but I don't know there's too many funny stories. They don't think I'm funny, full stop. But there's one that comes up whenever we catch up with a friend of mine that everyone in the family is embraced, and we might have probably added a bit of mayo to it over the years as well. But coming from a service family, you often mixed with service kids in different areas. So we were in the western suburbs of Melbourne. There was a community of service people that lived in, a block vicinity of each other, being in housing commission homes, and we tend to have the same sort of upbringing. You're here, they're there. These kids might have been there for 6 months at the end of their tenure, and you've just arrived, and so they mixed around, and we connected with this one family that they were from Queensland. We'd just come back in from Hong Kong, and primary school, again, we just connected. And it was probably because of the service piece, I'm not sure, but we were probably only one of a couple kids in the school that were service background. Yep. So we stuck thick for a while, and Melbourne for that period of time, and that was in the early 80s, was probably a place we stayed for the longest. And so we started to build up relationships well with these guys, and still very good mates today. Yeah. But we didn't have a lot of money as kids. Service didn't really pay a hell of a lot. I remember Mum telling us at one point for some of the Christmas presents, she made them for us. Mum's a great seamstress, can cook and can make clothes. So we, for a long time, Mum used to make our own clothes, stick our labels on them. Even to the point where at school, Adidas 3 stripes in the early 80s were the thing to have. You had a pair, yeah.
I'm
So
still an Adidas man, mate. Sadly,
yeah,
it's sort of been imprinted on my
I
forehead.
think the shoes used to be the Adidas Roams, and
That's it.
the tracksuit pants were the three stripe. Now we couldn't
That's it.
afford the brand, so we couldn't afford the Adidas three stripes. But Mum being as good as she was, we'd go to Kmart if it was Kmart at the time. She'd buy something that looked similar, and then she would sew on the third stripe. So I had Adidas three stripes. So that being Mum's talent, when we got to high school, we went to a tech in Sunshine, and that's where you obviously, as you know, you go from primary school to high school and you break up. Some go to one way, some go the other. So this mate and I went to the tech, and your sister was already at the tech. So we had some knowledge of people there and other kids and brothers and sisters from the school. But somehow, and I don't really know how it came about, but Mum had convinced my mate's mum, or not convinced, they both agreed that it was the right thing to do, that we should have a uniform. So we were two of the only kids in this pretty hardcore school that wore a uniform. And not even this guy's sister had to wear the uniform.
Be like having a target on your back, wouldn't it?
It pretty much was. He hasn't forgiven me for that. It comes up all of the time, and everyone seems to think that was a funny thing, but we were probably petrified at the time.
You would be.
That we were the only two. And other service kids that went didn't have a uniform. But he didn't know for a long, long time that it was our parents together and my mum making them that decided that we were going to wear uniforms.
I love
that. That's probably as funny as it gets from our end. And as I say, that when the family tell it, they add a bit of mayo to it. But,
I can imagine they would.
It stuck around for a while.
No, it's awesome. If you were to share something unique or interesting that you've never shared publicly before, Michael, what would it be?
Unique or interesting. Look, it's probably a recent journey, which probably entails or ties me back to a little bit of this whole investment piece and what generated my thinking around or accelerated my thinking around investment. But I was diagnosed a few years back with a disease called polycystic kidney disease, which ultimately means your kidneys will eventually shut down. So you'll go dialysis and then, if you're lucky enough, a transplant.
Wow.
So not too many people know about that. Those that are close to me obviously do. But that's something that isn't a problem. They're the cards you dealt, and you deal with the environment you've got. But it certainly changed the way I thought and made me learn or relearn or think about certain things that I hadn't done in the past that probably I needed to do and I was putting off. That changed my eating habits, my lifestyle habits, exercise regimes, all those sorts of things that stand you in good stead for whatever gets thrown at you, and that is physical or mental. So not too many people until now know much about that, but and that throws in some other passions around things that we push around transplant and people being on the organ donor lists and those sorts of things. So that's probably another conversation another day, but that was just something that it's close to me, obviously, because it's what I deal with every day. But from a perspective of what you do all the time, it kind of fine-tunes a lot of that stuff. So it sort of made me think business has got to be better, relationships have got to be better, and investments and things like that need to be better, because there's a limited time that you can do those things now. So you just need to get all your ducks in a row. So that would have been a thing to say 10 years ago. What I'm trying to do now should have been in place. So that's whether it's unique or not, but that's something that not too many people are aware of, but it's something that also drives what I do today. So it's kind of an important part.
would certainly change your perspective and add some challenges in relation to how you look at things. And it's funny how these sort of triggers, while they seem bad at the time, are often the switch that gets us to do things differently and better that we were perhaps putting off or never quite getting around to. It's often those things that create the biggest opportunity. And I guess talking about challenges beyond that, which is challenging enough, what challenging event in your life has brought about your greatest learnings and biggest changes beyond that?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. So traveling overseas a lot is a challenge because you need to learn to adapt and deal with change. But probably one thing that was close. My father-in-law passed away of MND. He was only 57, I think, 57 when he was diagnosed, 59 when he passed away.
Wow.
And there was a point in time there that when I was in hospital with him and we were having a conversation, I said, "Right, I'm about to go back and do this." And he just looked at me and said, "No, you're not." He says, "No, that's not the person. You're when you're doing that, you're not the person that you could be or should be." And so that was a point where I sort of sat back and said, "Okay, well, now I do have to reevaluate. So if someone's telling me that that's pure, honest and raw, then I need to look back and see what am I doing, what decisions am I making, are they best for me, are they best for those around me?" So that was a bit of a wake-up call because, as I say, I'm not far from that age now, and you sort of think, well, whilst there's a long life is long, it can be taken away at any time, but you've got to make the most of the time that you've got. And don't wait for things to happen, because often the things we wait to happen aren't the things we really want to see.
Absolutely right. No, beautifully said, mate. Let's translate that into the money world then. What does money mean to you, Michael?
Look, it's changed over time. So money used to be just what you had to survive. And I don't mean we're ever living on the streets, but it was, we did what we had to do. So in the early days, it was buy a house. And, then you go through that change of having kids, and then it goes through, being able to spend time with the kids. So money changed from being that necessity in just doing what we do all day, every day. We were in a lucky position that my wife could not go back to work after our second child, and she got to spend time with them where I wasn't. And we figured that if someone had to miss out, or the point is, if we were in a position where only one of us had to miss out on that, then that's the way it would be. So we were financially well enough to be able to do that. We could live comfortably within our means. It wasn't holidays, it wasn't buying flash and fancy things, but the value or that investment, I guess, was to spend time and put back into our kids. So we bought them up and someone else didn't. So we were lucky. Not everyone gets to do that. And then as time went on, money changed. So, that's when money becomes, well, how can I make money from money? And wherever am I going to be able to best use my money? So that was the business part of it. So that's where we decided, okay, well, I'm hitting a ceiling working for people. I'm going to take a chance, and it might work and it might not. And it was certainly into a field that I had no understanding of. But again, the core of it was about me. So I had all of my beliefs tied to it. And so that's where that then changed, was now we're investing into something that's got my blood, sweat and tears into it. And money became, I probably earned less money, but money became more important because I could see what had happened if I invested $1, I could get 2 or 3 back, or I could get 50 cents back.
Yeah.
So I started to think about how we used the money, and then the intent was to sell the business and make money from the business to put us in a more financially, better position. So at that point, the money actually had a value. And then again, changing businesses where we were able to actually be probably in a more profitable business, and we can actually start then to use the money. So it was always a learning curve of what money meant, how it changed, and how it could benefit you. So now money is, to best use my money is to work out how I can make more money off that money to ultimately not have to be involved in the thing that generates it.
Yeah.
So if that makes sense.
It makes absolute sense, the old residual passive income exercise. Where's investment fitted into your journey? And can you sort of give us a quick idea of what your investment approach has been and how that's evolved and where it's heading to?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess in the early days, again, you don't have a lot of money. So we were always taught, buy your house, own your own bricks and mortar, and then you're successful. So that was the first investment, was we've got savings, we're going to put them into this house that I'm not sure we ever thought it was our forever house, but it was a big deal. And it was going to take a big chunk of what we did. Within sort of 7 or 8 years of that, it was a case of, okay, now we need to outgrow this. We need to get as much equity in this thing as we can, so we can go on to that next investment. Yeah. And so for an early stage, that's what investing was for us, was just investing to get that next step up. Yeah. Get a slightly bigger house, more valuable house, something that is going to increase in its own value over time. Then from there, it was now a case of, well, how do we use the equity in the house better? And if I had my time again, you mentioned it in your intro, RentVest. I had no idea what that was. The word was just strange and didn't make any sense. And it probably took me a while to actually get my head around what that actually meant and understand that it actually was a good thing. Because it was the old story, why rent when you can buy? That's the advertising goes out there.
Exactly.
And so we're all driven to do that. So the RentVest is where I wish I had have started. It's one of those things of, you mentioned, let the tax man and the tenant make the payments for you and do the heavy lifting. Yeah. Do that early, have the opportunity to do it. And even if you rent, and I mentioned earlier that we had a group of guys that went away together, 4 guys, hadn't seen each other for a long period of time. And it was interesting just listening how they did their thing. And one said, I can't afford or won't be able to afford to buy in town, so I'm going to go and buy something out of town that I know I'm going to be able to pay off, and I know it's going to grow in investment. And that's a great idea for the simple fact that, okay, I'm not going to live in it as my full-time home, but it's something I can afford to do, and it's something that's going to appreciate in value, and then again I can use that value to do what I want to do. If they hadn't done that, they might have just rented and not invested and not have that asset in the growing in the background.
Yeah, it's yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of people, there's this debate over the two, and the danger is if you go down that road, you spend it on other things rather than put it into stuff. So having
and I'm guilty of that.
Well, home becomes a forced investment strategy in a sense, because it's a growing asset that you have to make the repayments on. If you look forward, then is your investment strategy like to change, and what does that look like? Can you sort of unpack that for us?
Yeah, so the investment strategy now, and I guess health is probably one of those things that accelerated that thinking, but it's accelerated too late. But probably said, stop messing around and start doing what you're talking. Because I have these conversations with customers every day. But it is changed that point. We don't need to own something that we buy. So if we buy it today, in 10 years' time, if cycles continue as they are or have done, it's doubled its value if you're careful about where you invest. So come retirement, you might not own it, but you don't necessarily need to own it. So you have that choice at that point in time. So do I go into retirement with the property that still has an encumbrance on it, or still has a mortgage on it that someone is still paying, and I may have to lean into every now and then, or do I sell that, use the equity and put that into my super at that point in time?
Yeah.
but it gives you choices.
Yeah.
And unless you do it, you don't have choices. And what was creating a fear for me was I was going to have this house that's worth a lot of money, and I would own it outright, but I would be forced to sell it and move to retire.
Yeah.
And I get the whole idea of downsizing and the rest of it, but you've got to then find a place that you like. You've got to, have something that has all those same comforts that you've got now. And so I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be forced to do that. It might still and probably likely it will happen, but I want to do it on my terms and not be forced to do that for retirement.
Yeah, well,
so
a lot of hardworking Aussies out there, Michael, who all of their wealth sits in the home, so they're asset rich but cash poor. Yeah. And sadly, most people's super levels isn't going to give them a sort of a level of income that's going to allow them to live comfortably. So making the hard decision to invest in things outside the home, or as you say, be forced to downsize to free up some equity that's going to fund your lifestyle. As some of the challenges that a lot of Aussies are actually faced with, whether they are aware of it or not, as we currently speak. So talking about investment, then, if you look back on your journey, Michael, what's been your best and your worst investment, and what have you learned from each of those? Yeah,
look, again, it's perspective, I suppose. So my best investment, to a degree, and not necessarily making me the most money, but was going out and starting my own business, because that then changed my way of thinking. And then it really has been property. So buying property that's given the ability to see greater growth than money in the bank, super. What's the average super turning around 8 or 9% over the last 10 years? Yep. If you put property next to that, it's significantly different. Yep. So you're not doing all the hard yards to get the same growth. My worst, very early on, was probably one of these pyramid schemes. Yeah. Because a mate said it was a good thing to do, and he'd made some money, so I thought I'd throw a couple of grand at that and do the same.
The old Amway special, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. Amway specials, the old what were they, pilot schemes, were they? The Concorde or whatever it was called. You got money in, and someone below you got money in, and I always seemed to be the guy that was on the end of the wing falling off, not the guy that was flying the plane. So .com, I had no idea on shares, no clue. I just had some mates that were doing it, and I thought they were good at it. So they said, you got to invest in this Hot Orange or whatever it was at the time. And I said, well, that's great. If you're doing it, I'll do it. And threw money at that without any knowledge, without any education, without understanding the consequence. And so when and I'm talking, we were young, just had a house, probably a small child on the way. So you needed every dollar you had. So you were desperately looking for the quick dollar. Yeah. And that seemed to be it. And of course I was always, again, that last one. So I think I put some money into this red hot thing, and it had gone up by, $100 or something over the week before. And as soon as I put my money in, it crashed and they closed the market. So I didn't even lose. I lost everything. I didn't even get to lose a little bit. But again, that was about poor education, no knowledge. And we grew up without having people investing. My family rented because of the jobs that they did, rented until they were 30, 40 years old. And there weren't many around me that actually invested. So it was a new, it was something we needed to learn. And I really think we need to implement that into schools. Another topic again, and another time maybe, but I think if we want to be a stronger, wealthier country, then we need to teach our kids what money is. So, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's had that journey with money and investment.
Most of us.
If I had learned that at school, then maybe, look, I may not have done anything with it, but come the time that someone else started talking about it, something might have made sense, and I may have done it a little bit earlier. But if you don't know about it, then you don't know what you don't know. And if you don't understand it, you tend to just turn away from it.
Exactly, and we go with the crowd. We go with what everyone else is doing, and if the majority of people aren't focused on it, they focus on the here and now and the immediate exercises. Then the delayed gratification of investing in the future just is not something that never comes under the horizon.
Yeah,
So,
I've been burnt before, and one of the things I've always learned is no one ever tells you about their losses. Exactly. So, well, yeah, I've made lots of money doing this. Oh, hang on, I actually lost all my money on that.
Yeah.
And they've gone through their education process. So,
100%.
you've got to talk to the experts, and lots of them, not just one, and truly try and understand what you're doing. So you can control it a little bit better. And I think within our supers, that's another thing that we just keep putting money in and not knowing what it's doing or how it works.
Yeah.
And given super is such an important part of our future, our kids' future, another thing they should be teaching properly at school. So
and not allowing the governments to continuously change the rules after the event because they want to get their sticky hands on that big lolly jar that's growing year on year.
Well, we all know that they've done it for their benefit as well, haven't they?
Spot on, mate. No, beautifully said. Really appreciate you sharing that journey, mate. There's a lot of people who are going to be nodding their head with everything that you've shared with us on that. I want to now sort of jump into what I affectionately call the bushfire ambush round, running off the old name. And there's a couple of quick questions that I'll get your responses on. The first of those, mate, what superpower do you wish you had and why?
Again, probably ties in, and I get picked on this a bit because I talk about it, but it's Wonder Woman's lasso of truth. Yeah. Because again, it just gets everyone to the point straight away, and if you could actually give people the confidence to tell you what they're thinking, not what they think they should tell you, then we can all be in a better position and get a greater result early on. And I suppose if I put that into the business side of things, when we're talking to clients, they're only telling us what they think they should be telling us, which when it gets to the nitty gritty of what we do, that can actually impede the result of what they get. And whilst they think they might be doing the right thing, it's always a case of just be open and honest and not be afraid to say anything, because look, ultimately we get to know all about you anyway. And so let's cut to the chase and get that right. The Wonder Woman lasso of truth, I wish I had a number of times that I could throw down the phone and get people to actually just be confident enough to open up and tell us exactly what's happening, and that way we can help them better.
Yeah, beautifully said. It's switching to the literary field for a moment. What would be the title of the book about you if your worst enemy wrote it, mate?
What do I think on this one? So this is like I asked the question around the place, and everyone said I don't have enemies. So that was going to be difficult, but I think it was something along the lines of you don't have to like them to respect them.
Yeah.
So if there is an enemy out there, I apologise, but it's all done on everything I do is done with good purpose.
No, I like that. You don't have to like to be respected is something that a lot of us shy away from because we like to be liked. But saying what needs to be said, whether it's taken on board or other, does create a lot of respect when people are brave enough to look beyond the impact that has on them, mate. So beautifully shared.
Yeah, look, I think that's come about. I've had people that I have learned so much from that I don't want to be anything like.
Yeah.
So, there's always some positive benefit to come out of the negative.
Totally agree. Yeah. I want to switch into caffeine for a minute, mate. If you can have a coffee with anyone, alive or dead, historical or otherwise, who would you choose and why? Yeah,
look, there's a couple I talk about that caffeine probably wasn't even around at the time, so and they might be controversial, so I might leave them off to the side. But one person that's always fascinated me, and I don't know why, because I'm not a political person, but for some reason to sit down with Barack Obama, I don't know. I've always just been impressed with the way he carries himself, just his knowledge, and he was reasonably brave to actually stand up where he was and be honest. And I think I like that about him.
Yeah.
So it'd be a really interesting person to sit down with and see what, how he's learnt, because he was never going to be president, and in the early days, and through his pathway, he's gone to the top of the tree, and so something like that would be really interesting. But look, I like history as well, so sit down with a Napoleon or Julius Caesar or someone like that, and live through their eyes would have been pretty cool as well. But modern days, probably Barry.
Yeah, and he is a real statesman. There's no question about it. He's eloquent. He sticks to his guns. I would love to have a coffee with him as well. Last one on these, mate. If you won $10 million tomorrow, what would you do with it?
10 million. It doesn't sound like a lot of money nowadays, does it? It's when you see everything being thrown out in $30 million, $50 million lottos, and businesses being sold for mega millions. But I think 10 million is huge, and it would give you the ability, or for me, it would be set myself up properly, make sure I was in a position to have all my debts paid off, support those around me, and definitely my kids, get them into a position where maybe not so much give them money, and hopefully they do listen to this, so now there's an expectation. But do something that means that there's something there for them to leverage off, but they've still got to go out and earn, the right to do a lot of things. But a passion for mine is just being able to go out and help people and give them an opportunity to do, educate people on finances, on general business stuff. So I'd like to actually set something up where I could help those disadvantaged get into a business for themselves and grow it. So there's not a lot of profit in that, and I've done some non-for-profit work in the past, and I've really enjoyed, imparting that sort of information and seeing people accept it and use it. So I'd love to set something up along those ways. So a bit of money there would actually give me the ability to be able to set something like that up and then leave some sort of legacy down the track.
Beautifully said, mate. I know we're going to dive deep into the very overwhelming world of asset finance in the next episode. But for those that are really resonating with your message today, what's the best way for us to get in touch with you, mate?
Yeah, look, either off our sort of newly regenerated Facebook page, National Direct Finance. Certainly reach out through our website, nationaldirectfinance.com.au, any of the socials, you're able to find us. But nationaldirectfinance.com.au will get you straight to our page and give them access to me or anyone else in the group.
Excellent, mate. Look, I really want to thank you for taking the time to share the ins and outs of your personal journey, mate. And
thank you, mate.
If anyone would actually like to ask any further questions or leave your comments and thoughts on this, just join and jump into our newly badged Property Hub Collective interactive Facebook community, where you can keep the conversation going with other like-minded, hardworking Aussies. And we now look forward to continuing the convo in next week's episode, where we're going to deep dive into the good, bad and ugly of the increasingly complex world of asset and equipment finance as a basis for combining the benefits of access over ownership and opportunity costs. So I look forward to seeing you again then.
Stay tuned for part 2 of this interview next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to Get Invested on the Property Hub podcast channel, your home for property investment insights and inspiration. And don't leave yet until you've taken the next step towards living by design by getting my award-winning book, Get Invested, absolutely free when you sign up at knowhowproperty.com.au or bushymartin.com.au. And finally, make sure you subscribe to Property Hub to get your weekly dose of Get Invested inspiration, along with every episode of Realty Talk, Australia's leading property show for red-hot property investing news and insights, direct from industry leaders and influencers. Remember to always get invested in your knowledge, and I look forward to seeing you next time.